Good evening, all. This is Trader72. Welcome back to my second show of the day. This is the evening diary by a small retail investor, and I am indeed. Indeed said that it would be a bloodbath this afternoon on my last show, and it turned out to be exactly that. The markets are well in the red. Let's have a quick look now, and as it looks now at the moment, US 30 down by 1%. It was worse yesterday, to be fair, by 500 points. People buying on the dip, I think it probably is what is happening. And the US Nasdaq just under about 217 points down, but it was a lot further in the red earlier on this afternoon, straight after the bell, the US bell, obviously, and it is what it is. So let's go back to the main driving escalation, which obviously the Middle East, geopolitical background there with the Strait of Hormuz, which is, I think, the big concern, I think, in terms of crude oil, because this is obviously where 20% of crude oil goes through, and it's been disrupted by the Iranians. So obviously, disruption means cost of oil goes up. So that's where we're at the moment, and it has gone 10% up on the day. It's a staggering amount. I wish I'd bought in even this morning, because it was around the 85 mark, and well, some people are making money out of this, to be fair, so fair play to them on that in terms of commodity traders. 11% up and about to touch $94 a barrel. So that is a staggering amount, considering that only about a week ago the oil price was around the early 70s. So it's almost $23 up in less than a week, and that's what a conflict in the Middle East does for you, especially if it goes on and on. So I predicted that it wouldn't go on that much more. I think eventually the constant bombing from the Americans and Israel on Tehran will be taking its load, and it seems that there's rumors potentially of backchat about a ceasefire, but it looks like our friend Mr. Trump only wants complete surrender. So, well, where that takes us, well, we'll never know. But it certainly has had an effect on everything in terms of crude oil, energy prices, inflation going up. So really, due to this fact at the moment anyway, this is something to certainly look out for the weekend for us traders, as this will obviously go into the weekend. So obviously any major news, I'll be in touch and I will be dropping a video, but it's certainly worth keeping an eye on. So Brent crude oil climbing to multi-year high. Equities under pressure. European and US markets under pressure. Massive sell-off in terms of inflation, risk aversion. Global equity funds net outflows with going to bonds, which obviously is always the way. So if there's a crisis, bonds or dollar or gold, safe havens. And certainly is that down to the Middle East conflict disruption of higher energy prices. So to compound this, though, to make it worse, it seems that we had also a negative, and I repeat, a negative non-payroll farm numbers. It went from an expected 59,000 jobs added to minus 92. Yes, minus 92,000. That is a heck of a negative. Also, unemployment ticked up from 4.3 to 4.4, as you can see there. Average daily hours have actually amazingly gone up a bit at 0.3 month on month and 4.5 year on year. So that was a bit of a shocker, because obviously we had some fairly good numbers from the private payrolls a few days ago, and it seemed like the economy was pretty resilient in the States, but that has certainly put a dent in our current situation in terms of where the job lot goes and what the Feds are going to do about this interest rate, because with that kind of detailed numbers coming up at minus 92,000, it could be now we have the Feds back on the interest cut. So delicate situation for them to certainly handle there. But we could be looking, as it says there, at stagflation, which is obviously in between inflation and deflation. But the volatility at the moment is certainly making the Feds reassess their interest cuts. So let's see what happens. But that certainly was a bit of a shocker, I must admit, when that came out. I had to actually look twice before I confirmed this number, but it is what it is. So that is actually compounded to today's red day in the market. Certainly not helping the situation. In terms of market news, on a positive note, Marvel Technology shares were up 16%. Another one of the AI chip makers doing very well with a fantastic forward and a very exceeding forward guidance, which is obviously always a good news, because obviously current numbers of the last quarter normally tend to be quite good, or in that ballpark. But the forward guidance is what people really look out for. So certainly is good news there from that point of view, and I think possibly why the Nasdaq hasn't fallen through the roof. Broadcom announced quite good news yesterday, and so did Marvel, and of course Nvidia before that. So the chip makers are certainly standing the storm of what's happening in the geopolitical situation. So that's a good way to do it. So in terms of this is the big news of the day from my point of view, my little small world as a small retail investor, is I have bought a stock and I have added to my portfolio. This is probably the first time I've done this since I've started this YouTube channel. So what is the stock that I bought? Well, drum rolls, here we go. We're going to show you in a minute. It is indeed, as I was predicted, and I was mentioned that quite a few times, Visa. Visa is my new portfolio. I've started a position, an entry point. I got where I wanted, which is around the 314. I think I mentioned that in a couple of videos, so please do look back at that. And 314 it was actually went down to 312. I had an idea that it would go down on the back end of obviously the payroll farms, which obviously does affect the consumers' spending. So I kind of went through the storm, waited a bit, and then bought in. No, I bought in a very small position, as I did with S&P Global. I remember that I have a fairly small account. I don't, play with 20, 50, 60, 100,000 pounds. It's a 10,000 pound account value, and I never try to exceed my limits, which is obviously important to understand, especially when you're spread betting on a spread betting platform. As they do remind you many of times. So at this moment, I bought at 314.14, as you can see, and I put a deposit down of £628 to buy me that £3,000. So stop loss at 265, which would be a loss of £500, and a profit taking at this moment of basically 360, which is roughly 365 where it has been, and it's peak-ish, which would make me a £500 profit just for standing around and waiting for the stock to make a move. If it does fall through back down to maybe near 300, I would buy more. So that's the idea, that obviously as a value investor, you buy an initial small amount and then you increase your tranches of buying. So at the moment, I've still got some money on the side waiting to be invested. So that was something I waited for quite a while. As you can see, it's barely in the green at the moment, but obviously with the storms of today, it's unexpected. The good thing about Visa, as well as, of course, as you will see from my chart, which I've mentioned already quite a few times at this moment, I've mentioned that it was at a really good discount at the moment of what we call the MOS, the margin of safety, based on its intrinsic price. So as you will see from this, if I scroll up to Visa there, here we go, you can see that Visa is obviously hits all my criteria, which I've mentioned already quite a few times, so there's no point going through that again for now. And it's currently at $416 a share intrinsic price, which gives me a discount of 23%, actually 24%, as I bought it around the 314 mark. I actually think that it's just on the cusp of I would normally look at anyway, 24, 25% and onwards, which means that if the stock was to fall further, I have a cushion of safety, and that's the whole idea of this system. So I think, like I said, it's a good buy. I think it's a good price. You're not going to get Visa every day at 314. It could well fall through further with the consequence of what's happening in the markets at the moment, but I think that I did an analysis on it yesterday, so you already know why and how, and just the thesis behind why I bought into Visa. So I'm very pleased about that, because I must admit, buying Visa at 314 when the price at 350, 360, and maybe hopefully north of 400 is an extremely good price. It was a toss a little bit between also Microsoft, which I quite liked, which was at that time, if we look at the news there, we put the news down, Microsoft is still at 410 and weathering the storms really well. Both Microsoft and Visa, by the way, I have got a thing called a beta, which is a beta is effectively where the market will go. So if there's anything under one beta wise, that means the stock is quite defensive, which means it doesn't move too much with the market. So the higher the beta, the higher the number above 1, the higher the stock moves with the market and can double up on the market. So I'm very aware that the situation with the markets at the moment is very topsy-turvy and very volatile. So at this time in play, I think buying stocks that are in low beta, which please do look up what beta exactly means. But it basically means the volatility. The stock moves with the volatility of the market. So anything under 1 is a little bit safe and doesn't move as much. It does go down, as we can see with Visa today did, but not as much as a more volatile stock like a tech stock that would go up by maybe 1.50 to 2. So if it goes to 2, it's 2 times what the market. So if the market goes down 1%, the stock goes down by 2%. So you get the idea there. So both, like I said, Visa and Microsoft have fairly low betas, which is unusual for a big tech stock like Microsoft, because normally their betas are quite high. But it's an established big company, massive cap, so large cap company as we call them. So I think it's a good thing. So my next bet really would be at this moment to either increase on Visa or S&P Global, or potentially go into Microsoft. I really like Microsoft. I think we're rarely going to get Microsoft at this price again for a while, I would assume. So it's certainly something that we need to look at, and it looks like it's getting stronger in terms of after a major sell-off a couple of weeks ago. But anyway, never mind that for now. We've just bought into Visa, so that is added to my portfolio. So that's the kind of news of the day for me. And I'm sure you guys, if you followed my video, would have expected that I probably would have made a move on either that or MasterCard or Microsoft. To be watched. I'm looking at increasing that portfolio potentially next week, but obviously that will all depend on my criteria and where the market goes. And it's very important that you guys keep true to yourself in terms of criteria, that you don't bend the rules. I did that mistake many of times, and then you end up buying the company at the wrong price, and that can be disaster. So please do make sure that if you do buy and you do use my system, which is our system, the value investing, that you make sure that you have a margin of safety of at least 20 to 25%. It's very important if you're going to use that system. Do it that way. Please do not blindly just obviously copy what I buy. Make your own due diligence. I'm sure you will. But it's worth mentioning that I am not got a finance background. I am self-taught, and this is just me and my system. So if you want to pick and choose what I've done, that's fine. But don't obviously do your own research. It's important that you work that system through and understand it before you buy. So it obviously can be applied to many other different stocks. So that's pretty much it at the moment. In terms of actually alarms today, quite a few obviously went off. The news bit, we've already gone through the news in terms of where we're at the moment. So that's obviously been a bit of a shock. But in terms of anything else, let's have a quick look at the alarms. Lululemon again's gone off. Lululemon keeps going up between 165 and 180. S&P Global did touch upon 450 again. I'm going to reset that alarm. Visa at 314. I've just bought that in. Apple kind of fell back to 255. So you know when the big boys fall back. Meta even fell back. Again, Meta, another very good company to buy into, and possibly some value there in terms of where they're at this stage. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it really in terms of all the rest. We've seen Alphabet even buzzed out under 300 for the first time in a while. So that just tells you how much the markets are moving in one direction and in the other. And so there we go. So I think for now, I mean, this week, the takeaway of this week really is the 3 takeaways, which I like to finish with. The 3 takeaways are geopolitical tensions now a primary driver. I think the oil issue is going to become a bigger issue as this goes on. I think we've all got to look at the situation day by day and see where this goes. Clearly, Trump is keen on going all out forward until they have a complete surrender. And the US labor market surprising weakness to finish the week off. That's another big takeaway of the week. And it looks like the tech, and a reverse really of the situation with tech and AI, where obviously there was a pullback a few weeks ago in terms of AI software, which I still think most of these software companies like Salesforce are still well down in their share price, of most of them down to their 52-week lows, as you can see from Adobe, Salesforce, Intuit even. But certainly a pullback in terms of certainly positive in terms of the actual chip makers all releasing very, very good numbers. It's pretty much over for the earnings season so far. We've kind of obviously started this YouTube channel on the back end of it, but next week I think we've got Adobe, which is my company and my stock, which I'm keen to see what they'll be coming up with for their update for the year. That will be a key driver of the stock moving towards hopefully $300 a share. If not, it could be a reversal and I could be holding that stock forever, it seems. But I still got faith in it. You've got to keep the faith when these things happen because it will test your mettle. So, there we go. So I think that kind of is it. I hope you all have a great week. I am exhausted. I am going to go and rest, have some good food tonight and chill out. I've had a busy weekend last weekend with my birthday, so I am going to have a quiet one. Had a bit of an injury in my back, so I think I'm going to be just relaxing the old back. Play a little bit of golf on the driving range maybe next week. On Sunday, potentially testing my new clubs I've just got. You know, thought I'd share. Sharing is caring, that's what I say. You know, a good chill. So I'm hoping you guys will do the same thing. I don't think there's anything else I've missed out. As you can see now, my S&P Global weathering the storm as per usual this week. It's been an amazing stock so far. And I'm hoping that it will go up a tad more. Visa there going to the green as well. And obviously Adobe back up to 279. It was at 282 at the only opening this morning. So there we go. So do keep an eye on the news. I think that's the most important thing. And anything that will come up that will be we should be aware of, I can make you aware of, I will of course let you guys know over the weekend. So do keep an eye on that. If not, I will see you on Monday for the early morning diary show. Just a kind of a pre-news on before the markets open again, and then hopefully let's hope that next week is a little bit less volatile, but I doubt it with the situation at the moment in the Middle East, and I still actually can't believe how high that price of crude oil is flying at the moment. But let's see what happens. Please subscribe and like, very important. And let's have all of you a great weekend. Over and out from Trader 72. Bye-bye.